Hi, writers. We are back looking at poetry. So today you're going to need your poetry book again and your magic pen. And that's all you're going to need. So make sure you have this and then let's get started. So yesterday we talked about how poems look. So we looked at a few poems and we wrote some things down in our book about what we think poems look like. Today, we're going to talk about what poems sound like. So just like yesterday, we learned that poems look a lot different than the writing that we've been doing. Today, I think you guys might notice that poems also sound very different from the writing that we've been doing. So I'm going to read you guys 4 poems. And as I read these poems, I want you guys to be thinking, what does this poem sound like? What are some of the things I notice about how this poem sounds? Are you guys ready? Okay, let's get started with this one. It's called The Fat Cat. I had a cat who was so fat he could not even sit on his mat. He had a hat that did not fit. He put it on and then it split. Okay, think about what did that poem sound like? Okay, let's look at the next one. This one's called Snowball. I made myself a snowball as perfect as could be. I thought I'd keep it as a pet and let it sleep with me. I made it some pajamas and a pillow for its head. Then last night it ran away, but first it wet the bed. Okay, how did that one sound? How is it different from the writing that we've been doing? Let's look at the third one. Thanksgiving. Thank you for cats. Thank you for stars. Thank you for chocolate. Thank you for cars. Thank you for baseball. Thank you for books. Thank you for firemen. Thank you for cooks. Thank you for family. Thank you for kissing. Thank you for everything I must be missing. Okay, think about that one. That one sounded a lot different from the writing we've been doing. How did it sound different? Okay, last one. You ready? Everything on it. I asked for a hot dog with everything on it, and that was a big mistake because it came with a parrot, a bee in a bonnet, a wristwatch, a wrench, and a rake. It came with a goldfish, a flag and a fiddle, a frog and a front porch swing, and a mouse in a mask. That's the last time I ask for a hot dog with everything. Okay, so you guys just heard 4 different poems about all kinds of different things. And I want you guys to think about how did these poems sound? Okay, so if you get out your poetry book that we worked on yesterday, you should have the first page talked about what we noticed about how the poems look. So you can see I just jotted some stuff down, and this was things that we talked about yesterday, how the poem looked. So we talked about how there was white space. It didn't fill up the whole line before it went down to the next line. Some of them were long, some of them were short. Some of them had different shapes, like the football one that we read. It was in the shape of a football. And then it didn't have punctuation, capital letters. It didn't have all that stuff that we're used to. So it looked very different. So today what I want you guys to do is take this page and you're just going to flip to the back. Okay. And today you're going to write what were some things that you noticed about how it sounds. Okay. And so I wrote sounds at the top of my page, so I know that's what I'm thinking about. And I want you guys to write down at least 2 or 3 things that you noticed about how all those poems sounded. Now, some of them sounded different than the others. So use that. You can say one sounded like this, the other sounded like that. Think about how these poems sounded. And then I want you to pause this video and write down 2 or 3 things that you noticed. When you're done, you can press play on the video again, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we wrote down in our book. Okay, so go ahead and pause now, write down your things, and then play the video again. All right, so you guys should have written down 2 or 3 things before you pressed play on the video. So we are going to talk about some of the things that we noticed. So what are some of the things that you guys wrote down? Let's see if they're the same as some of the things that I wrote down. So of course, I hope you guys noticed that some of these poems rhymed. Did you guys notice that? I did. So I want to tell you guys that poems can rhyme, but they don't have to rhyme. So a lot of times they do, but they don't necessarily have to. And I hope you saw some of those poems that I read did not rhyme the whole time. Okay? So they can rhyme, some of them do, some of them don't. Okay? But one thing that I think all poems have is a rhythm. So you could tell when I was reading that poem, I kind of had a rhythm when I was reading them. It wasn't like just reading a story. You kind of read a poem like a song. It has a rhythm to it. So rhyme and rhythm are 2 things that I hope you noticed about how these poems sounded. I also hoped you guys noticed that some of these poems sounded silly. They could have been kind of funny and silly, and some of them sounded serious. So some poems can be really funny and silly, and that's great. And then other poems can be really serious. So we're going to try out both of those kinds of poems in this unit. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to talk about that I hope some of you guys noticed is that some of these poems were repeating. Like the Thanksgiving poem, it said, "Thank you for," and it said that over and over, and it just changed the last word. So poems sometimes can have repeating words over and over, and that also gives it that rhythm that we talked about. Okay, so I wrote some of these things down. I hope you did too. I wrote rhyme and rhythm, silly and serious, and repeating. So those are some things that we noticed about how poems sound. So tomorrow we're going to actually get to try out some poems, and we're going to do a really fun activity. So this is all you guys are going to do for writing today. Tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to try to be poets ourselves. So I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow for poetry. Bye.